Hey everybody, I'm Elyse Sparks from Sparks Wellness, where we talk about getting moving in body, business, and life. And today we have a really special guest, Brittany Lynn Kriger.
Mhm.
Did I say it right? Okay, before I say all your accomplishments and everything, I just have to tell everybody that the reason why I'm so giddy is because Brittany and I have been online business buddies for like 4 or 5 years. And this is the first time that we're even looking at each other on video or talking to each other. So I feel like I'm on a first date. My heart is pounding. And I'm really excited to be here and share you with everybody because I know all the great stuff that you have to offer. So let me say a little bit more about that. You are the founder of the Soul Food Project. You are an anti-diet health coach, which I love. And you are also the author of an upcoming book, which we'll talk about in a little bit too. So thanks so much for being here, Brittany.
Thank you. I'm like, this echo everything. Like, it does feel very surreal. Like, as you were talking, I was like, this is not like a tone and tune up video. This is not like, this is actual, like, we're talking. This is live.
Yes, we know each other. It's like for real. And there's so much I love about you. I was just telling you that I love your writing. I love everything that you share. I read a proof of your book. I know that it's a little bit different from when I read it, but I'm just so excited with everything that you're offering to the world. And I would like to start with that. And I have it written down right here. And one of your mottos is love the food you eat, live the life you love, ditch guilt and regret. And I feel like you are doing for food and movement what I am doing in more like the fitness exercise world with just dropping the guilt shame game around getting moving in general and just filling ourselves up with more ease and body kindness. So that's really cool.
Well, actually, this is so funny. I'll do this right now. Is it okay? I have you in my book as a resource for people to go to for, movement around joy and movement. Is that cool? Are we okay with that?
Yeah, of course. So I know today we want to talk about really getting into like mindful eating. And I know that something that I struggled with for years, and that I know that my clients and many people feel around food is like this feeling of being in control with it, and like whether the food controls me or I control the food, or how to get in and out of that without having a diet plan, without having this prescription of exactly what I can and cannot eat, what is good, bad food, on certain days or whatever. So how can we even begin to approach that feeling of like having control or not having control around food?
Right. It's really frustrating. And I always feel like people think because this is what I do for a living that I have it all figured out. But so I always like to preface this by saying that I have been on both sides. I've both extremes of completely restricting, basically juice cleanses almost all the time. I was basically always cleansing, whole foods cleanse, smoothie cleanses. One day a week was always devoted to a juice cleanse. And I think 3 days out of the month, I would do a juice cleanse like for 3 straight days. So I actually was at this point where I was essentially starving myself all the time, which pushed me into the exact opposite, which is when I then went from that's kind of orthorexia nervosa into binge eating disorder, where it was all or nothing. So I am intimately familiar with that need to control and then the fear of losing complete control and eating everything in sight. So something that and it's interesting that you talked about, like, we've known each other for quite some time now. And that mantra, love the food you eat, live the life you love, ditch guilt and regret, has been with me since almost day one. But my journey through food has shifted so much. So it's interesting that that still holds true. But I think that that's what I wanted so badly at that time. And it seemed so elusive. It seemed like something that I had sometimes, but not always. So I think that the number one thing to keep in mind is perfection is illusion. It's an illusion. There's no such thing as willpower. Willpower is something you know how they say perfect marketing is when you create a problem and then you also create the solution to that problem?
Yeah.
So I don't think that the diet industry created willpower, but they certainly leverage it and use it and say, basically they say to us, they with a capital T in quotes, they say to us, you don't have control over yourself. You don't have agency over your own life. You don't have willpower. You know you're going to screw up. So here, follow my plan. Replace 2 meals out of the day with this shake or smoothie, pill, powder, and then you won't have to. So maybe that works for a few days or a week or a month, or maybe it even works for a year. I mean, depending on your personal level of commitment to that certain goal, maybe you can make it last a little longer, but eventually you're going to go to the opposite extreme. We're not meant to live in extremes. So what I've forgotten the initial question. I just went off on this like tirade.
It's all related. I love it. About the control, about like feeling in or out of control.
Yes. Yes. So, okay. Yes. So control is actually an illusion. And what I've recently started doing with my clients is when we start talking about food and making a plan for food, or a lot of times people open their refrigerator and just don't know what to eat. They feel paralyzed, or they go to a restaurant and open the menu and they're like, okay, menus now have the calories that are in things. So looking at the calories, and then there's this little section over here that says, this is the healthy fit choice. So you're like, oh, I should order this, but damn, those enchiladas look good. So it's like learning to listen to the different voices that are in our heads, the voices of shoulds and shouldn'ts, the voices of them telling us what we think and should do, versus learning to trust ourselves. And that is the main issue, is that we can't trust ourselves because we've been told that we can't, and we've been taught that we can't, and we have more evidential proof to the point that we can't, because we have failed every single diet. We have quit every single intense exercise regime, right? Because we try to push ourselves too far and we go beyond the point of joy and happiness and enjoying life to seek some sort of permanent control, which is not a real thing.
And I think that I'm like over here like nodding my head to everything. And I think that when I hear you say that, and also I know when I work with my clients as well with the very same themes as far as exercise goes, it's almost like I'm like, oh, I feel like a little bit I have to be the bearer of bad news, because the trusting yourself piece is actually, in the beginning, maybe not in the long run, but I feel like that's actually a harder thing to, it's not actually more difficult, but it's more difficult than having someone hand you a piece of paper to say, this is what you have to do every day. And it's like listening those voices that you mentioned. I remember when I was struggling with a lot of food stuff, it would be like, it's funny, from where I'm sitting right now, I can like see my kitchen, and that doesn't bother me right now at all. Yeah. But I know that in the past, it would have been like the food is like actually talking to me or something like that. Like I know that there's a chocolate bar in there or something like that. And now I'm like, yeah, I'll have that later if I feel like it. Now I've kind of gone off on a tangent, but I just feel like that piece of it, the mindfulness and the trusting of yourself, and you're listening to like those voices that are going on, is the path. Like it is the way. But it's sometimes, I don't want to say it's harder, because it's not actually harder once it becomes like ingrained in you. But I think in that beginning step, it is a little bit more challenging than just like, this day is this. I know every month I have a 3-day juice cleanse, or, whatever it is.
Right. Yeah. And I think that is absolutely the case. So there are easy solutions, right? There are quick fixes out there, but ultimately you're going to end up in the same place that you are before you implement the quick fix. So I have a mentor who says, if it looks a lot like work, it probably is. Like, if you got to put on the overalls and get out there with a hoe, it probably is going to be a lot of work. But is it going to be worth it in the end? More than likely, yes. And I think that is why the health industry is hard to be in when you're in more of the holistic approach, and because that quick fix is what we're sold on the daily.
Yeah.
And anything other than that looks a whole lot like work. And it is, but it's work that will last a lifetime. It's not just, I think I used to throw so much money at juice cleanses. Like, if I could have that money back, like, I would spend $200 on a 3-day juice cleanse, and that was like on sale. And I was an actress living in New York City with like no money. What was I doing?
You were getting healthy in the quote.
Right. I was
in the
so clean on the inside. Like, oh, so the book I've written, you've read it, and it's changed a little bit, but the overall message of like, what is clean eating? Because food isn't good or bad. It's not dirty. Like, yeah, you might pull a potato out of the ground and it needs to be washed, but inherently it's not good or bad. It's not dirty or clean. So it's almost as though we want to have both. And that's when I talk about healthy hedonism and the ability to have your cake and eat it too, and how can health and hedonism coexist. And it's keeping that joy and that happiness at the heart of health, instead of the cruel regimes of diet and exercise and enforcing your logic mind over your desires and your cravings and the things that you really want for yourself. And do we have time for a quick story?
Yes, go for it.
Okay, so the other day I had this super intense craving. Have you ever had a grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich?
No.
Okay. When I was growing up, grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwiches were my jam. Like, oh my gosh, all the time. It's all I ever wanted. And I was blow drying my hair the other day, and I had this like memory, and I now live really close to my grandmother's house. When I was a kid growing up, if I hear like birds chirp or something, it's like the sounds are the same. And so for whatever reason, I just like, she came into my head, and then all of a sudden she had this sandwich press that would press your sandwich and grill it. And I was like, I have to have a grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So I had some almond butter, had some bread, had some jam, made it, and it was so delicious. And I was like blown away. And you probably still have these moments where you're like, I just let myself have a sandwich and didn't even think about it. But there was a time where I would have thought about that for maybe a week. And then instead of having the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I would have binged on a million other things. And yeah, and I thought at that time, I was like, so we deny ourselves the little things. Like, I want that something small. We deny ourselves that something small. What happens then to the things we want that are really big, like our hopes and our dreams that are huge? If we're denying ourselves these really small things, what about the big things that we want for ourselves? How can we possibly get those if we won't let ourselves have the little tiny ones?
It's all connected.
It's all connected.
All connected. So true, though. One, I know we have an exercise to do that we're going to invite everybody to this, and I want to get to that. But I also just want to say really quickly as to your story. I'm pregnant right now. I'm currently pregnant. And it's been an extremely interesting turnaround as far as cravings and food aversions go. And the I don't know if I've had like stereotypical like pregnancy cravings, but what I do notice is that I'll be normal, like doing and thinking other things, and then all of a sudden my body will very strongly tell me that I need to eat a food and a specific food. And it's not like totally weird, like pickles and ice cream or anything, but it's like, you need to eat an orange right now. And it's just been a very, very interesting experience because also back in the day when I was really struggling with also binge eating and pushing down these desires and cravings and stuff like that, I can just totally relate to what you shared about not going for that thing that your body is even thinking about or telling you that it needs, and then it just spiraling and becoming like this whole restrictive, going against the restrictions type of a thing. So anyway, I feel like in this current body, in this current state, the signals are like so specific and clear, that it's really interesting to observe. And I feel like we could kind of like take that maybe when there's not another human asking for something, but to be able to hear those and then act on them, like you said. But speaking of eating, mindful eating, so you have an exercise that you can help us with today, like get started with all of the above that we've already talked about. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, and this is something that viewers who are watching can do with us.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, cool.
All he needs is a snack, a treat, anything. And it works really well too with something that you usually eat really fast, but you wish at the end you had been like, I wish I'd savored that more, like a brownie or whatever your favorite snack is. Like I always think like oatmeal cream pies. Remember Little Debbie's?
Oh yes.
I used to devour those.
Okay, well so if you're watching, get your snack. This is like not an ad or a plug or anything, but this is my snack that I've been digging are these like fig bars, which are sort of like the like kid fig Newton kind of bars, but they're like, I'm gluten-free, so they're gluten-free. And I've been really enjoying these as a pregnancy go-to snack. And I do eat them rather quickly. So this is probably good.
Fig Newtons. I'm gonna have to check that out because yes, fig Newtons are what's up.
Yeah. They're really good. Nature's Bakery. That's
okay.
Not a specific plug, but there it is.
You will go ask them for money now.
Yes.
Yeah. So this exercise is, while it is going to seem a lot like it's about just noticing your food, which it is, it's also about savoring. And you were mentioning when you were talking about exercising, like how what I was talking about, you notice in your clients, and it's really because is how we are in everything, right? Like that's a common saying. I'm not like saying anything that's like extremely profound, but it's true. Like we don't really think about it when it comes to food. We don't really think how I am with my food is also how I am with my schedule and how I am with my exercise and how I am with my work. So food can actually be a really telling symptom of other issues. So blame the food for a lot of things. We're like, if only I could stop being this way with food, I'd lose the weight, or I'd finally be happy, or I'd get married, or whatever. But often it's not the food. So as we go through this exercise, I do invite you to notice not only the tastes and the sensations in the physical body, but also emotional responses. If you feel yourself getting really impatient, if you notice that you're waiting, this is an exercise, I call this like yoga off the mat, because we're not on a mat. We're not really practicing asana, which is the physical practice, but totally like this is yoga with your mouth.
Love it.
All right. So are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. So I also have a friend who says this can either be really awkward or this can be really awesome.
Well, I hope everybody's doing it with me, because otherwise it's just going to be watching me eat, right? So get your snack and do this with me.
Don't make Elyse be alone in this.
No, but I have no problem. I will eat in front of you on video. It's no problem.
Okay. Thank you. Taking one for the team. So the first one, and I gave them all sassy titles, is Here's Looking at You, Kid. So with this one, you just take your food and you look at it. You don't have to touch it, but just look at it, objectify it, investigate it with your eyes, consider like the shapes and the colors and the contours and the textures. Even notice if you can any like refraction of light, like if there are any areas where it's getting hit by the sun maybe, or do you see any natural curves? Like I don't know, could be, yours is a bar, so it's probably pretty square, but maybe there are some irregularities.
There are some irregularities.
Yeah. And so what happens with food is the visual appeal of our food can be really, really magnetic. And also digestion begins with our eyes. So you hear often it begins when you chew, but it really begins with our eyes and looking at the food and taking it in. And so while you look at it, start to consider all the disparate parts and pieces that are making it up. If it is made up of different plants from a garden, or maybe it's got some animal bits in it. So what are all of the little pieces of the whole? And just notice, if you can, every little grain, every little particle, every little piece. And then the next step from sight is smell. So it's aromatic. Go ahead and take a whiff of your food and imagine you're like a sommelier with like a really nice wine. See if you can notice any particular notes. One of the funniest sommelier notes I've ever seen is like moldy basement. So see if you can find anything, anything like that in it. Any herbs or spices or fruits or grains, anything. One thing I heard once was, can you smell the sun? If it's like something that was grown in a field by a farmer, can you smell the sunlight? Is it sweet or is it savory? And you may beginning to feel the salivation beginning at this point. So that's further digestive juices getting going. And then you've already done this, Elyse. I'm not going to get on you. It's totally fine because you have to show us on the camera. But now you can touch your food.
Oh, look.
So now go ahead and, yeah, no, you're golden. So go ahead and just touch it and see if it feels different than you thought it would. Or, you know, we're told not to touch our food. It's like breaking all of the rules that we've been raised with. So just if it's in a big chunk and you want to break it apart and see if it's crumbly or if it's cracks, like it's really, I don't know, would that be dry, dehydrated? So right now we're just really experiencing food on all the levels that you possibly can, and try to feel it without naming the sensations. Just experience touching and feeling and savoring with your fingers and your senses all of the bits and pieces. So if your food requires a utensil, go ahead and you can grab that at this point. If it's just your fingers, then you've got your utensils. And just notice that your hand knows how to hold, if you've got a fork or a spoon or like a fork and a knife, just notice how your hand knows exactly what to do without you having to think about it. And holding it with your hands feels completely natural. And then notice, it's kind of like when you're at a photograph and you suddenly don't know what to do with your hands. Like at this point, you might be feeling like, this feels weird. And so just kind of notice those sensations that are coming up. But at this point, think about tiny babies and when they're learning how to eat, and it's so hard for them to get the spoon to their mouth, or even they can't get their hand quite to their mouth. But for whatever reason, we learn eventually. And it's kind of amazing that we just take it for granted and we can eat so quickly now. So just notice the next time you can how slowly babies eat, because it's so very hard for them. And so at this point, you can go ahead and put your first bite in your mouth. But as you do, notice how your hand knows exactly how to go up to your mouth, how your pulls the food into your mouth, and just start to chew very slowly and try not to swallow. It's going to be very hard to resist, but try to notice that chew very slowly. And we're told to chew our food 32 times. And that's so that when we swallow and the food gets into our bellies, it's already pre-digested. So keep on chewing. Just notice how the bite moves around your mouth.
It naturally went down.
That is so common. This happens every time I do it. It's okay. Take another bite, and this time try. And when you get that urge to swallow, see if you can resist. It's really hard, I know. So just notice if it's sweet or if it's savory, if it's juicy, if it feels dry. Notice what's happening on your tongue. And then as you keep chewing, the flavor is going to shift and change, kind of like when you're chewing a piece of gum and it just loses its flavor after a period of time. And that's usually when we want to swallow. So just see if you can resist that urge and chew until you feel like you really can't chew anymore. And then hold the food in your mouth. Did you swallow again?
No, it just It just like disintegrated.
Oh,
I'm
okay. Well,
chewing it.
you can take another bite. I'll allow it.
Okay. Can I also brought some almond milk. Can I have?
Yes. Cleanse your palate.
Okay. All right, let me try again.
Okay. And this time
Kind of
just,
disintegrates.
yeah, just chew as much as you can. And then when it's time to swallow, do it really mindfully and see if you can notice how your tongue moves the food into the back of your mouth and then down into your throat. And then see if you can feel it actually moving down. It's a very subtle sensation, but we always tend to chew on like one side of our mouths and then somehow the food just magically gets down our throats. And it's this really mysterious thing that happens until you try to pay attention to it. So now pause and see if you can taste the food kind of on your breath in the same way you tasted it when it was in your mouth. And then this is the point where you practice silence and just pause. And this is where it's like a mindful awareness meditation movement. This is meditation because meditation is doing what we do all the time, but instead of doing it by rote or by habit, we choose to do it with specific attention. So bringing that mindfulness to it, directed moment to moment, very precise in this exact moment, non-judgmental attention. And then notice your breath. And notice what's coming up in your mind. Like, are you thinking about another bite? Are you eager to have the rest? And if it's possible to you, and at least I won't make you do this right now, but if it's possible to continue eating the rest of whatever it is that you have with you with this level of attention. And something that I offer, so you can get this worksheet and try it again. And one thing I actually really love to do this is like light some candles, put on some beautiful music. You can do this with another person or do it by yourself. Use your fine china, use the silverware that you never use the crystal that you never use, make yourself a beautiful meal. And can you imagine eating a meal with this level of attention?
Be like super sensual.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. So one of my clients recently told me after doing this exercise, she had to call her boyfriend and say, I think I just cheated on you.
I think you should come home now.
And why don't we do this together?
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it really heightens the experience, your awareness, the flavors, obviously, but also like all those other sensations. And I think just doing it now, I mean, I know it's a little bit different because it's like on video and everything, but even just doing it now, it heightened my awareness of my habitual things, the habitual way that I do things on autopilot.
Right. Well, we have patterns that we are, and especially with food, we have they're just so deeply rooted and instilled in us. And say you start working with a coach or you decide to start shifting your habits around food. Well, often it's really frustrating at first because you're like, I want to make these changes, but I can't. Well, you're fighting 20 to 30 years of this other pattern. And you've maybe been working on this for 8 weeks. Maybe you just started. So an awareness of that in general, and that all these habits, they've gotten you to this point. Like, you've survived up until this point. You're doing a really great job. So maybe you feel like you want to be a little more joyful about it. And that's why you like that invitation to step into savoring.
I love it. I think this is amazing and such a great place to start, and then keep coming back to when you want to increase your awareness around the foods you're eating, the cravings that you're having, and how to really have more autonomy in your own body and actions about the choices that you're making around food. So like you mentioned, you have a worksheet that everybody can get to follow what we just did and learn a little bit more about this. So all of that info will be below this video, so you can download that and get all this goodness from Brittany, what she's sharing. And then I also, before we say goodbye, I just also want to make sure that people know how to get info about your upcoming book. So if do you know that now, or we should put that below too?
Well, it's available for pre-sale now,
Oh, perfect.
which I'm not sure when this will be going out, but it's available for pre-sale. And there's a link from my website, which is the Soul Food Project LA. And it's just housed on there. The book is called Glowing Goddess Guru Beast Glowing Goddess Guru Beast Manifesto. And so it's available for pre-sale, but then also it should be, if all of the stars align as we are planning them today, it will be out in late May. So
Perfect.
certainly by June. Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay. And we'll put all that info below so you'll know all the dates and all the links and how to get it. Thank you so much for coming and sharing with us, Brittany. It was so exciting to get to talk to you, and also delicious to eat my fig like that. We'd also love, Brittany and I both would love to hear from you. If you tried this with us today, which we hope you did, and if not, you can get that worksheet and try it on your own, and leave a comment and let us know what came up for you when you did it. We would really, really like to know. So thanks so much for watching, and thanks for sharing with us, Brittany.
Thank you so much. This was fun. Really fun.
Really fun. Okay, bye.
Bye.